Lincoln Castle has witnessed some of the most dramatic moments in England's history.
But its story begins far earlier than most people realise.
Beneath these walls are Roman foundations, and above them centuries of conflict, law and punishment. And what happened inside these walls shaped the course of English history.
From up here, you can see why this site mattered. The Romans built a fortress here. The Vikings made it a centre of trade. And when William the Conqueror arrived here in England, he knew this was the place to secure his rule.
In 1068, 2 years after the Normans had invaded England, William the Conqueror faced rebellion in the north. Much of England had once been ruled by Danelaw, and Lincoln was still a thriving Viking trading hub with markets, workshops and trade routes stretching across the country. To control it, William built his castle on the site of the old Roman stronghold.
This wasn't just about defence. William demolished 166 houses to clear space for his castle. It was a statement of power right in the heart of a Viking town that had been resisting Norman rule.
Lincoln Castle was unusual because it had two moats, two raised earthworks that were topped with wooden towers and later rebuilt in stone. The Roman walls were incorporated into the castle's curtain wall, tying Norman power to the ancient foundations. And from here, William could control the roads going north to York, south to London and west to the Midlands.
When William's younger son, Henry I, died, he named his daughter, the Empress Matilda, as his heir. But female rule was unprecedented and it was unpopular, and Matilda soon found herself challenged by William's grandson, Stephen. England was thrown into a civil war, became known as the Anarchy, and Lincoln Castle became a prize worth fighting for.
In 1141, battle erupted here. Stephen's forces clashed with Matilda's supporters, and the fighting soon spilled out into the streets of Lincoln. And in the chaos, the now King Stephen was captured.
The king being captured was a humiliation that shook the kingdom, but for Matilda and her supporters, it was a moment of triumph. For Lincoln Castle, it was proof of its role at the centre of national politics.
By 1215, King John had been forced to sign Magna Carta. Bishop Hugh of Lincoln was present at Runnymede, and the castle holds one of only 4 surviving original Magna Carta manuscripts. But King John was quick to break his promises, leading his barons to revolt, and it plunged England into the First Barons' War.
By 1217, Lincoln was under siege. The rebel barons surrounded the city with Prince Louis of France, who the barons had invited over here to take the throne of England. Inside, forces loyal to King John held out, but outside these walls, the city was in flames.
Luckily for the king, one of England's greatest knights, William Marshal, wasn't too far away. He gathered his army and called for loyal knights to meet him at Newark.
From there, they marched to Lincoln, and William Marshal led the king's army to victory. With the siege now broken, the French forces withdrew and Prince Louis renounced his claim to the English throne.
This wasn't just an average battle, this was the moment England's future was decided. Without the king's victory here, the crown might well have fallen to France.
Lincoln Cathedral dominates the skyline here, and in 1290 it became part of the final journey of Queen Eleanor of Castile, the beloved wife of King Edward I.
Eleanor died just a few miles from here. Her body was brought to Lincoln to be embalmed in the cathedral, and her viscera were buried here. From here, Edward I led her funeral procession to Westminster Abbey, and at every stop he raised a monumental cross to mark his grief and devotion. The first of the Eleanor crosses, as they came to be known, once stood here in Lincoln, and a small section of it remains in the castle grounds today.
In 1308, the Knights Templar were seized at Temple Brewer and brought here to Lincoln Castle. Once powerful crusading knights, they were held here in the castle's Cobb Hall, waiting for their fate to be decided. Their hearings were held in the chapter house of Lincoln Cathedral, where bishops and royal officials gathered there to question them on charges of heresy and corruption.
For Lincoln Castle, its role was brief but significant. The Templars were held captive here, and the same thing was happening across Europe as the knights had their land confiscated and their order dissolved.
In 1644, during the English Civil War, Lincoln Castle faced its final battle. The Royalist forces, led by Sir Francis Fane, held the castle. The parliamentarians, led by the Earl of Manchester, surrounded the city. And for 3 days, Lincoln was under siege.
On May the 6th, the parliamentarians stormed the castle. Despite defenders hurling stones and rain turning the slope to mud, the soldiers broke through in half an hour. Over 900 royalists were killed or captured. The fall of Lincoln Castle secured Parliament's control of the city.
This was the last time that Lincoln Castle saw battle. From here on in, its role shifted, no longer a fortress of war, but a place of law, justice and imprisonment.
By the 18th century, Lincoln Castle's military role had faded, but its walls found a new purpose. A Georgian courthouse was built inside the grounds, and in the 19th century, a Victorian prison rose alongside it.
This was no ordinary prison. It was designed for the separate system where inmates would be kept in isolation with minimal contact. Even in the chapel, they'd be separated by partitions.
The chapel is one of the most striking features here. Prisoners sat in individual wooden stalls, separated by high partitions. They could hear the sermon, but couldn't see each other. The design was meant to break down the spirit and encourage repentance through solitude.
Justice here could be final. The executions were carried out at the castle's Cobb Hall, and crowds would gather below the walls to watch the hangings, a spectacle that continued into the 19th century. And many of the bodies were buried here in the castle's Lucy Tower.
Justice at the castle didn't end with the Victorian prison. The Georgian courthouse still stands and today houses the Crown Court. Modern trials still take place in the same building where centuries of justice have been dispensed.
Few places in England can match Lincoln's record. Built on Roman foundations, raised by Norman kings, fought over in civil wars, guardian of Magna Carta, prison to knights and rebels, and still a seat of justice today. Every stone here tells a chapter of the nation's story.
And that's what makes Lincoln Castle remarkable, not just its age or its scale, but the sheer depth of history contained within its walls. It's a castle that stood at the heart of England's story for nearly 1,000 years.